You likely remember Sean Moninger. Sean comes in the spring once a year. Sean's a friend. One time he was one of my students when I was teaching CEP. Now he's a minister. He has been for several years. And I think a darn good one, too. That was one of his soloists. That was at his church in Norwalk, Connecticut. What if I believed Christ in me? What if we did? You know, we talk an awful lot about it. And it reminds me when we often in life experiences of the guy in the Bible. Lord, I believe. I believe. Ooh. Did you feel the power? I believe. Help thou mine unbelief. We believe, but then we find that situation where we don't think it works, or we think God is not. I'd like to direct you back again to that opening statement. I speak truth, I lie not. I speak truth and I lie not. We lie a lot. We go around saying, well, there's only so much. Time, money, love, anything. Limit anything in this universe. There's only so much health, only so much life. That's a lie. But the universe responds. You experience what you believe. So, Myrtle said, I speak truth, I lie not. And the opening statement was a reminder that when we speak the truth, when we speak the truth about God at all times, we keep that in front of our faces, it's tough. It's really difficult sometimes. I have a quotation from John, 16th chapter. These things I have spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation. But be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. In the world you have tribulation. Are you tribulated enough? Do we know what tribulation is? Well, it does come from a word meaning to drag, as in to drag a field, to drag when you're harvesting. It means to press, to oppress. Have you ever felt pressed? Have you ever felt oppressed? And the dictionary turns a nice phrase, a trying experience. In this world, just imagine if Jesus had said, in this world, ye have trying experiences. Doesn't quite carry the same weight as tribulation, does it? Now, there's a lot of places where there's tribulation in the Bible, and a lot of places where it scares people. But you may have noticed over these last few weeks, months, I've sort of been interested again in Hopkins, Scientific Christian Mental Practice. It's a good book. I don't recommend it for light reading on a hot afternoon. This is a quote from Emma Curtis. Jesus Christ said we would have tribulation while getting our good support by telling the truth. Let me stop there for a moment. When Jesus said, you will have tribulation, it's that inner tribulation that we experience when we start changing the way we have expressed ourselves in the world. You go around and you've learned there's only so much time, there's only so much life, there's only so much health. You can only do so much, that there's lack all around you and all kinds of things. And they're lies. But we're comfortable with them. We've been saying them to ourselves. We've said them to each other for so long. Still, you've heard me say this before about the Unity minister who said one day to me, well, Greg, we have to admit it. We're only human. Really? 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 See, that's a lie. That's not speaking the truth about God or the image likeness of God. But when we begin to change the way we speak about ourselves and our word, we begin to actually speak truth, hold on to truth, then first there's tribulation, there's pressure, there are some trying things that go on in your own consciousness. You're tribulated. I suppose that's a good verb, isn't it? Tribulated. As an example, the night before I went to the hospital for that little piece of surgery, I was told I couldn't eat after midnight. I couldn't have anything but water after midnight. As midnight approached, I became apprehensive. Oh, I'm thirsty. I want a cup of coffee. Midnight came, and man, the craving for a cup of coffee. For maybe a little nosh, little midnight snack. There was an inner battle for a while, and till I finally just said, stop it, and settled in with it. But that was tribulation. I was under pressure from myself. From the old me that was afraid, well, I can't do without. My goodness, as soon as I think about having to do without something, all of a sudden, the desire to have it comes up. You've experienced it in a variety of ways. You give up chocolate for Lent. Do you give up chocolate for Lent? Why would you? But if you decide you're not going to eat chocolate, then all of a sudden, the desire for chocolate seems to raise its head. Smoking. I'm sure there have been a couple of people in this room who quit smoking at one time or another. I did it the easy way. Yeah. My last cigarette was on the way to the hospital as I was driving on the way to the hospital having a heart attack. Managed to get rid of it before I got on the gurney and then went into arrest. 7 days in intensive care, I didn't smoke anymore. But let me tell you the reality of that. I had no cravings, no desire. And I never have since. I said, it's the easy way. But I can remember prior to that, when Debbie was still here as my secretary, I decided I was going to quit. So one day here in the office, towards late afternoon, she came up to my desk, she got on her knees and she said, Greggy, please have a cigarette. Oh, I got so short. Well, not short this way, but ill-tempered. Oh, yes, you got the look. On her knees saying, Greg, please have a cigarette. A day was about all I could do. It's an interesting phenomenon, that kind of tribulation that goes on. You decide to do something, and all of a sudden, all this stuff inside comes up and says, you can't do this. All the desires that you said, I'm not going to come forward and make their presence known. Well, it's not something new. We talked about this in ministerial school. Ed Rabel, he liked the work of Maurice Nicole and spoke of the first, second, and third force. First force is when you have an idea for some good in your life, some new direction. When you decide to speak the truth. Boom, that's first force. I'm going to do this. And then second force comes in. All the reasons why you can't. All that stuff that goes on in the background that says, well, you really believe this is going to work? It hasn't worked before for you. Nobody's going to fault you if you give this up, because it's just foolishness. It may be good for some people somewhere sometime, but all the reasons why start coming up. Just like all the reasons why I had to have a cup of coffee or a piece of chocolate or a cigarette. You got one? But, and it's a big but. But, if you continue on that course of applying that first force, that new way of thinking, that new way of seeing yourself, a new way of seeing God. In other words, you continue to speak truth and stop lying, what's going to happen? Eventually, third force is the product, the change of state, the change of consciousness. The quote continues, but he said, be not afraid, I have overcome. It's Jesus telling you, you can do this. I have done this. I have made the change from one state of thinking to another. I have overcome. He meant that he had come over all the worldly way of being supported by telling the truth. Well, who supports you? What is your support? First thing when somebody says, ask you how you're supported, well, you all often talk about your visible means of support. A job. Somehow you are able to get the stuff to make life more pleasant in this world. But the most important is that invisible means of support. And that is, God is your life, God is your health, God is your strength, God is your all, your substance, your intelligence, all is God. When you begin to think that way, he said, and come over all the other ways, well, I get my good this way, and I get my good from that person, and, sometimes, he said it would come out, and that it would come out right with us. I have done it. And remember, the things I do, you can do, and greater. So, I've done it, you can do it, and it will work out right for you. Tribulations. Every time you choose, you have a thought to stand on truth, stuff comes up. Stuff comes up within your own mind to tell you why you can't, why it won't work. There's a passage in Matthew that I wanted to show you today. Matthew chapter 24. Matthew, is it? That's New Testament, isn't it? Matthew, New Testament. Matthew talks about tribulation. Verse 6. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed. There are going to be all these thoughts going on in the back of your mind. All the reasons why this is not going to be productive in your life. How telling the truth isn't going to work. But the other piece of that is, see that you are not alarmed. Hold to speaking the truth. Hold to your position. Stand firm. Emily Cady talks about that with the process of affirmation. And she talks about an acid and a base, baking soda and vinegar water, right? Mix them together, it blows up. Well, not explodes, but, foams up. Effervescence produces gas and it gets larger. But what you're left with is a salt and water. One could say it's sort of a purifying process when you mix an acid and a base. Actually, if you mix an acid at the low end of the pH, say 3, and a base, say 8, 9, put them together, you're going to end up with a neutral, a 7, which is what water ought to be, sort of. Emily Cady talks about when you're using these affirmations of truth, two things can't occupy the same space at the same time. And in the process, you get all this fomentation, this tribulation in the background, all this stuff going on in mind. But she says, and these are my words in her mouth, stick to it. Hold on. Continue to speak the word of truth. And boom. First force, you set it in motion. Second force, you get all the tribulation. Third force, it works out and you're at a different place in consciousness. That's how it works. He continues and says, for this must take place. Yeah, that's how you get the old stuff out. That's how you get the mind changed. But the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All this is but the beginning of the birth pangs. He doesn't say this, but I'm saying this. I'm adding this onto the scripture. Of the New Jerusalem, the new state of consciousness. It's the birth pangs. Wars and rumors of wars. That's the opposition, according to Emma Curtis Hopkins, that we get by telling the world the truth, by beginning to hold truth in our minds, by beginning to speak truth to one another. When somebody seems to be having challenges in their life, and there doesn't seem to be enough substance, enough financial support, we no longer go up and say, oh, my dear, I know, it's just that times are tough. That's a lie. What makes the times any more difficult now than ever? Simply how we think about it. We've all talked about the economy over the last few years. What made the difference? How we think about it. Is there any less good in the universe than there ever was? No. Is there any less God in the universe? No. But we begin to think about the lack and the separation. So it's in our own thinking. That's what has to change. So we start to look at people, and you don't see a miserable... In the song, Lenny sang the word wretch. Did you hear it? What was the t-shirt? I'm the wretch you sing about. Have you ever seen that t-shirt? A wretch like me. I'm not sure that I can really define a wretch. I have a visual impression of what a wretch is. But when you see one, you don't see one. Do you understand that statement? When you see one, you don't see one. You stop seeing the appearance. You see someone that seems to be down and out, and you start to see them and speak truth to them. You are God's beloved child, and God is your source of supply. And there is infinite good in this universe for you. Now, you don't go up and start shouting this at them. You speak it in your own mind. Speaking the truth rather than going, oh, ain't it awful, how sad. That's not the truth. Famine. Well, at first it seems like, my goodness, in our own thinking, if we give up the way we've been speaking about our lives and ourselves, if we give up speaking the way everybody speaks about things are hard and times are tough, we'll just lose. No. It's the fear of famine, the fear of lack that comes up. It's that fear that arises because we're giving up a cherished way of thinking, of believing. I didn't say it was a valid way of thinking or believing, but they're cherished. We get stuck on some of these things. If you don't have the faintest idea where your support is coming from, then start affirming that your good is unlimited intelligence. Have you ever done that? My good is unlimited intelligence. Together, my good is unlimited intelligence. Now, this is a piece of a challenge. Take this idea through this next week. Start making that a firm place in your mind. Gentlemen, you can, while you're shaving, you can start saying that to yourself. Ladies, I don't know what you do, but when you're doing it, putting on your makeup, you can begin to affirm that your supply is, that your good is unlimited intelligence. Beginning to make that a firm place in your mind. There's another passage in here. I'm going to go to verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Oh, that sounds really sad, doesn't it? But that's like the falling of the curtain on the old. Change of scenery. In theater, when you have a scene change, how often does the stage go black? And then when the lights come back up, it's a new scene, a new day, a new character, a new part of the play. Well, the next line is, then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. All the old stuff will start to recede, and you'll see this consciousness of God and truth. Christ, if I believed, Christ in me. That was a great song. And that's what this is saying. If you believe, and if you hold to that, and you speak the truth, eventually the curtain will descend on the old. And that stuff will go out. The old way of being in the world will cease. And the curtain will rise on that consciousness of you as a child of God. How beautiful is that? Coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send out his angels with a loud trumpet call. That's a pretty big announcement. And they will gather his elect from the four winds, from all the lands, all areas of consciousness, from one end of heaven to the other. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? all faculties will be drawn together into this consciousness of Christ in me. Not a bad situation. Now, I speak truth and I lie not. Well, the truth of God, when you speak the truth of God, then the omnipotent God begins to move. In other words, that formative or creative activity of God begins to manifest in your life, begins to go to work. Everything that you tell the omnipotent truth to will begin to rise up and become strong. To name God is to tell the truth of God. What is the truth of God? God is life. If God is life, where's lack of life? Where's the opposite of life? God is health. Well, if God is health, where's the opposite of health? There isn't. You proclaim that irresistible idea. And when you proclaim that irresistible idea, God is, that's a statement of being. God is. Statement of being. All creation feels it. God works in truth, not in those lies we've been telling ourselves. So, if you look at the back of your bulletin, and for those who are watching from elsewhere, we have it on the screen for you. This is a statement of being, or a statement of good, that comes from Emma Curtis Hopkins. Again, Scientific Christian Mental Practice, pages 27 and 28. I'd like to do this first section, down to about the middle of the page, as a responsive. I'll read the first line, you read the second line. I'll read the third, you'll read the fourth. In other words, you'll respond to the verses I read, and then I'll read at the bottom four verses of that first section, life is God, you'll speak, truth is God, love is God, substance is God, and we'll stop. Okay. The statement of being, the statement of good. The good I am seeking is my God. My God is my life. The good I am seeking is my health. God is my health. The good I am seeking is my strength. God is my strength. The good I am seeking is my support. God is my support. The good I am seeking is my defense. God is my defense. Life is God. Truth is God. Love is God. Substance is God. You have just spoken truth. You lied not. And now we take the next section. I'll read the first line, you read the second as a litany. God is intelligence. God is life. God is truth. God is love. God is spirit. And we understand omnipresent. For example, God is intelligence, everywhere present throughout the universe. There's no place you can go where the intelligence of God is not. Omnipotent, that intelligence is all-powerful. It is all power throughout the universe, and it is omniscient. It's all-knowing. It is the knower and the knowledge itself. God is life. Omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. Truth, love, spirit. All three. Take this with you. Where's a good place to that kind of sounds strange. Where's a good place to put this? I almost said stick it. Refrigerator, bathroom mirror, that'll get it in your brain, right? Under your pillow. Casey said sleep on it. See if you can do this at least once a day. Do it not, the good I am seeking is my God is my life. The good I am seeking is my health, my God is my health. With mindfulness. With your mind open, receptive, and responsive. And you will reach that place where, what does the sign say? Yes, you get past it. Overcome. You pass it all and end up out in front in the clear road that leads to your heaven. Right here, right now.